I remember we had 70,000 active users at that time. So it was very stressful because one day, Friday morning, we received a call say, hey, something happened. You have until Monday to figure out another partner and just switch all the accounts, everything that you have to another bank partner. When we have a lot of capital, we can raise a lot of capital. You just think, hey, hire like 10 brilliant people, put them together, and everything will happen, right? Magic. And that's not true. Even brilliant people, they need time to understand the product, to commit their mistakes, and then start to deliver. When you have 2,000 employees, it's very easy to feel comfortable with 6-month deadline for everything, right? And when we talk with the startup that's starting right now and say, hey, we launched this in 6 days, I say, oh, fuck, I need to change.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fintech Leaders, coming to you from New York City. I'm your host, Miguel Armaza, and I'm a co-founder of Gilgamesh Ventures, a venture capital fund that backs early-stage fintech entrepreneurs in the US, Canada, and Latin America. If you enjoyed this conversation, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows so more people can learn about fintech leaders. Today, I bring you a very special recording with Pedro Conrade, CEO and founder of Neon, one of the largest digital banks in Brazil and Latin America. We sat down on stage in Sao Paulo at the Gilgamesh Ventures Summit, an annual meeting where we gather limited partners, founders, co-investors, and friends for a series of events and discussions about the future of financial services. Serving almost 20 million clients, Neon is one of the largest fintech companies in the world, and without a doubt, Pedro is among the most inspiring figures I know. Every time I talk to him, I come out with a shot of motivation and positivity. In this episode, we discuss how an overdraft fee infuriated Pedro and inspired him to launch Neon, why major crises and tough moments help build a more resilient company, Neon's M&A strategy, insights from 5 company acquisitions, and many more company building lessons for founders.
All right. I think we are just about ready to get started with an exciting part of the program. And I think we're in for a real treat because we have Pedro Conrade. I always get the pronunciation. Yeah, close, but not quite. But Pedro is a rock star, and he's a true fintech leader. And Pedro, I don't know if you know this, but almost 4 years ago, we recorded a podcast, and it was over the phone. The sound quality wasn't great, but it was my first ever recording. And ever since, we've had about 260 other podcasts with over 300 individuals. But, going back to that first one, it really inspired me to like, wow, I want to do this. I want to do more of this. And it was maybe because you're so nice and you're so open with your story, and it was so inspiring. So it was a great start. And so I'm glad that we now get to have the update, right? Because a lot has happened. So please, Pedro. So first of all, thanks to Pinheiro Neto for hosting us on this amazing day of our Gilgamesh Summit that happens once a year. And we try to bring people from really all over the world to hear about some of the amazing developments that are going on in the industry that we call fintech. And then Pedro, so before we talk about Neon, which is an amazing story, I want to first talk about how old were you when you got started, Neon? So again, thanks for the invitation. I remember the podcast 4 years ago. A lot has happened since then. Good things, bad things, usually more bad things, but the good ones
are bigger than the others. Like 4 days bad news, 1 day good news. Usually it's what happens with entrepreneurs. I was 23 when I started. I'm 31, 2 kids. So
A few puppies.
yeah, like a lot of puppies, 6 dogs. And I was 23. I had no idea, to be honest, what I was doing. And it's funny that we're here in Leonardo, because if it was not for them, Neon would never exist. They were the ones that Bruno and Leonardo, they were the ones that made this possible, to understand regulation at the time and finding a way to start a digital account. So it's good to be here.
So what was it that, as a 23-year-old, inside of you convinced you that, you know what, I'm going to drop out of college, because you did eventually, and I'm going to go compete against the large multi-billion-dollar multinational banks?
The question is, why? Lack of responsibility. Absolutely. I had no idea how challenging this was. And to be honest, I think the only reason why we started is because I had no idea how difficult it would be. But then you fight like everyday battles, and one by one, at some point you look back and see, hey, yeah, we have something here. Let's keep doing it. Let's don't think about super long term, otherwise we'll freeze. But I was very unhappy with the level of service that the big banks used to provide at the time. 8 years ago, the word Fintech didn't exist in Brazil. There were no angel investors. There were just crazy people that give a portion of the bonus to young kids to try something. So there was almost nothing. One of the only funds, we have 2 or 3 funds here, in Brazil. But I was very frustrated with the level of service the traditional banks used to offer, and I decided to build something that would help me and my friends and people. At the time, I used to make $300 a month, so paying $200 a year in banking fees just to have a checking account was crazy money for me. So I had an idea. I saw Simple Bank in the US at the time, where Simple Bank was one of the first digital banks globally, even from this new generation. And I said, hey, I could do something like this, connect a prepaid debit card with an app. Every time you use your card, you see the transactions. This should not be that difficult. And then everything started.
It's interesting because the company that bought Simple Bank is your investor.
Yeah. Funny story, right? Because when I was thinking about, so what happened is, so the click was when I had this bank account with one of the incumbent banks, and I used my debit card, 26 reais, but I had 27, but I had 26 bank account balance. And then I used 1 real my overdraft. When I looked at my account, I had 47 reais negative. So what happened was just 27 reais. And then there was a fee for using revolving credit. I mean, it was super expensive. And then I decided, hey, okay, no monthly fees for users. Let's start something very simple and more transparent. And then when I had this idea, I said, hey, I should talk with the guys from Simple Bank, but they were recently acquired by BBVA. So I connected with the guys from BBVA and said, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And I said, okay, I'm not the guy, we're very young. Yeah, it's nice. We like the thesis. That's why we acquired a Simple Bank. I said, okay, I'm going to build one here in Brazil. And then 4 years later, I knocked on the door again and said, hey, do you remember me? It's me. And they said, yeah, but they're too small. We have a corporate venture fund that does the investments of this size. It was called Propel. So they led Series A together with Monoshees. And then they were the only one that did all the pro-ratas. So Series A, B, C, and happens that BBVA directly invested in the Series D. So yeah, the biggest shareholder today and very good partner.
We're going to talk about how Neon looks today, which is a company of 2,000 people, and it's essentially a financial ecosystem. But the road there, as you just mentioned, hasn't been easy, and you've gone through, as you described that, I remember a few years ago, some high highs and some low lows. Would love to hear about some of the biggest challenges you encountered, and maybe about one that was around the Series A.
Yeah, and Fernando, who's here from Pioneer, can help with this question also. because he spent 2 nights not sleeping trying to save the company with me. So after Series A, so the way we started the business was with a partnership with another bank, like a very small bank from Minas Gerais. They had an issue with the central bank and their license was shut down. At the time, we landed our name, Neon, to the bank. So all the news were like, Banco Neon was shut down by central bank. I remember we had 70,000 active users at that time. So it was very stressful because one day, Friday morning, we received a call say, hey, something happened. You have until Monday to figure out another partner and just switch all the accounts, everything that you have to another bank partner.
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days. And we used every single minute, an hour from those 3 days. I think we had a great team support from great lawyers that helped us and we were able to make this transition. And it was funny because on Saturday, everything, the app was out. People could use their money, but they could not access the app. So they could use the card and go to ATM and withdraw some cash. But people were complaining, hey, I want to open an account. Why cannot I open it? I say, hey, did you read the news? Like the bank was shut down. Like we still figuring out a way to solve this. But unfortunately, we were able to put the bank live again on Monday. And from that moment on, we got so strong after going through a situation like this. The team delivered like 10 times more than we used to deliver. And then so many things happened after that. I mean, this was a very iconic one, but every day you have challenges.
I think you alluded to this a little bit, but it sounds like this experience changed you and maybe changed the company, how you look at things.
Yeah, I lost 30% of my hair. And yes, so one thing that we're discussing here with Ben, Fintech is very complex. We're dealing with people's money. And I mean, the moment you start a company, there's someone trying to fraud you, someone trying to know the rules to get a credit and run away and to get into your app. And, there's so many problems relating to dealing with people's money. So it's super complex. That situation helped us to see how critical it is to have a digital account, to have a bank, like a financial institution. So we doubled down in I was 25 when this happened. And to hear the word compliance, governance was something like, what? What is this? But at the time, we could learn from someone else's problem. At the time, it was not our problem. We were involved, but it was not our problem. How important it was to build everything the right way from the beginning. So it was an important lesson for us that helped us to build the company in a solid way until now. But it's still challenging. Market is competitive. Everything's happening. Interest rates are high. Delinquency rates are high. So we're still facing a lot of every day a different fight.
How does the company look today in terms of team, in terms of product, and other things you like to highlight?
So I think we're now 8 years old. It took me 7 years to have like a dream team. And I know this now, but I always think if I had the same team that I have today when I started the company, the story would be different. It would be 10 times bigger. But fortunately, we have now, right? So we have 2,000 people. We have 3 offices that only ghosts go there. Like it's all remote. We have an office here in Sao Paulo. We have an office in Bay Area. This was a very important move we did last year to start to hire very experienced ICs, so distinguished engineer, principal engineers, data scientists. We have 3 C-levels there. So from a diversity perspective, we're bringing people from India, Russia, China. We have like 2 of the C-levels. They are not Brazilian. So this is helping a lot to bring different kind of knowledge. So team-wise, I think we have the best moment of the company. Otherwise, we also found ourselves, usually the digital banks, they start with pretty much with the same product set, digital accounts, credit cards, investments, savings accounts. So usually they all look the same. After a couple of years that you have the minimal product set in place, you start to develop products that differentiate ourselves from competitors. So that's our moment. We understood that to serve low-income population, you have to have smarter products. So the way we think about is we have a cash-in to credit strategy. So we try to connect any kind of collateral. It can be a soft collateral or hard collateral. to a credit product. So you help people to manage their credit lines better, more responsibility. So for example, a secured credit card, it's performing super, super well. It's the main product today. So we ask people to deposit 100 reais, and then we leverage this 100 reais to 200, 300, 400 over the first couple of months. So people save to have credit first. There's a friction in the beginning, so it's harder than selling clean credit cards. But once they do this, it's super powerful and healthy for their financial education. And also the payroll loan. We became one of the largest players of payroll loan in Brazil. That is a very responsible credit. So people with low financial education, you have to help them to have access to credit with the right product, not just giving credit away.
One thing that we haven't talked about, Pedro, is the fact that you have been acquisitive as a company. And this is not very common, I would say, not just in Brazil, but around the world. It's not unheard of, people do it, but it's also not the most common thing as even Series A, B, C company to go out and acquire, in some cases, meaningful sized companies. So talk about your acquisition strategy and what have you learned after, is it 4 acquisitions? 5 acquisitions.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of doing great acquisitions. It's very tough to find like the perfect match because it's a big responsibility for us and also for the entrepreneur that is coming in. We did 5 M&As until now: Fácil, Consiga Mais, Bjork, Levy, and Magliano. 2 of them were related to having the license that we need, so a brokerage house and a bank license. And the other 3 was because of the business. So I'm a huge fan of M&As, especially because what we try to find is a great team led by a great entrepreneur that sometimes is struggling because to be entrepreneur is always tough, right? So you have to fundraise, you have to take care of so many things at the same time. But in those cases, they have a great product. They have good product market fit, clients, but they need some boost with like balance sheet, more client base, for example. So till now, I'm very happy with the ones we did, and I'm very active, especially now, where I have great companies suffering because they could not raise. So we will keep doing this for sure.
We've been running around town with the team throughout the week, meeting portfolio companies around the ecosystem, and there's always a conversation that people are having about should we maybe make an offer, should we consider M&A? What have you learned about successfully integrating the team once you bring them onto the Neon culture?
I mean, we learned by committing mistakes, right? So the first one was disaster. The first M&A, we did everything wrong. We tried to integrate everything so fast that the team that was performing great in their business, they now had to worry about like a bigger company bureaucracy. And we learned a lot from that one. So the other 4, I think we did very well. There are different strategies, but the way we like to do is, so the whole company works in business units. So we have 4 business units that run separately, independently. They have their own CEO, CFO, CTO, all the C levels. They have their own P&L. They have to have positive gross margin, each of them. And so once we integrate the new company, we try to replicate this. So usually the new companies, they come as a new business unit where we try to get rid of things that they should not think about as fundraising, treasury, all the compliance, all the stuff. We have this to support them so they can not think about this anymore and only focus on growing the business as fast as they can, removing roadblockers and just let them free. And usually what happens is that those entrepreneurs start to perform even better than we're performing, and we start to send some products that we have in-house and not performing that well. So, hey, you're doing so great that take this and fix it and do it better. So we learn by committing mistakes, by doing, and I think now we know how to do it.
So you were just describing how the product looks today. And it's really a financial ecosystem at this point, maybe even a super app. Internally, what's your process like with your team to figure out where to move next? How do you make this key decisions internally?
I think this is the most difficult thing today. I think another big mistake that I committed in the beginning was trying to do everything at the same time with no quality, with not knowledge and sophistication. So we did 10 different things, none of them very, very well. And then from like 2 years now, we decided, hey, let's just focus on a few things and do them like perfectly and forget about all the opportunities we could think about, but just making sure we deliver those ones with like perfection. So, I mean, nowadays, everything goes to such a large description to be launched that it's almost impossible to launch something new. But I think that's good, honestly. I mean, we just need one perfect shot. Any of our products can be $1 billion business. Any of the products, there's a huge market. So the trade-off of should we invest in this product to start something new? It's always a complex discussion. And then I'll go back to the previous question. That's why I also like M&As, because we have someone already focused on this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then instead of starting from scratch in-house, you just take someone who is doing this and boost them.
So before lunch, we had a panel where we were actually talking about talent in Brazil and how, there's plenty of talent, but it's not always trained to exactly what you want to do, right? You're a large company at this point, 2,000 people. What has been the approach and how different is it from when you back, 8 years ago when you started to find the right talent?
Probably this is the biggest learn for me. I mean, we are now, since we brought this new guy, Andre, that runs our Bay Area office, is a very experienced guy in technology for 20 years. And he brought this new concept, hey, we have so many junior people in the company. Why? I mean, junior people takes 2, 3, 5 years to start to give back all the investment the company is making. So we started to bring only more senior people. So the balance now is fewer people. We had more than 2,000, and then we were cutting and cutting every day. I think we should have less than 2,000, but from a payroll cost, maybe will increase a bit because we're bringing very senior people that can bring exponential results. Another thing that I also learned is that when we have a lot of capital, we can raise a lot of capital. Leaders just think, hey, hire like 10 brilliant people, put them together, and everything will happen, right? Magic. And that's not true. Even brilliant people, they need time to understand the product, to commit their mistakes, and then start to deliver. So I learned that scaling is not that easy, especially because it's very hard to scale talent. So usually talent people, you just bring them from one mission to another mission. It's very risky to hire a new talent expecting that they're going to solve all your problems, right? It takes time for you to trust them and for them to feel comfortable to deliver what they need to deliver. So, I mean, I learned a lot. And if I would start today again, I hate this kind of sentence because you cannot start again in the same business. But if I could, I would hire like a third of the people that I have hired, more senior, like not that fast, because I think less people, more experienced can deliver much more than a lot of people going around, no idea what they're doing.
Earlier today, we heard from Pedro Conrade from the central bank, and I think I speak for all non-Brazilians, but many people were blown away by just like the sophistication of the central bank and also their approach of collaboration with fintechs. We'd love to hear your experience navigating the regulatory environment and dealing with the central bank.
Yeah, I've been through good moments, and then it was very close to a bad situation, as we described it here. I was there, seeing everything that happened. I think that's the unique thing about Brazil, how the central bank takes care of the market and take the lead in new kind of regulations that allows competition, new players to come. Like, so I don't know any other country in the world has so many different licenses to allow competition to happen. The payment institution and the light credit institution and all this kind of different licenses. And the way they support, the way to PIX, and now the tracks. So it's unstoppable, right? They're launching things. And I mean, central banks like around the world can say something political but here you see that over the years, they're committed, and it is true, right? They're really committed to competition, to improve conditions for everyone to compete, because at the end, it's good for consumers and for the companies, right? Then with a market environment, you have better prices, better service. And look at what happened in the last 10 years in Brazil. It's insane. It's insane. Brazil was always ahead compared to other markets, but it's insane how it evolved. Even ahead, we're not waiting for things to happen. They're taking the lead in launching things. So I feel very fortunate to start the company here. At the time, this move of a different kind of license was just starting. So I was the first wave of a new payment institutions. Also, Pianet helped me a lot during this moment. And I think this is very unique. That's why Brazil has so many strong fintechs that are becoming global and even better than usually US is the benchmark, but now Brazil's becoming benchmark for fintechs.
That's a global example. You used to hear of missions, of trips going to China, going to Silicon Valley, other places to learn about what was going on. Now, first of all, we have a lot of people here, but I'm also hearing of other missions, of entrepreneurs visiting Brazil to learn what's going on, not just from the central bank, but from you and from other companies. So it's amazing. But we have entrepreneurs in the room and also listening who are actively raising capital or getting ready to. You've gone through multiple rounds. I'm sure none of those was easy.
None.
What have you learned about raising capital from VCs?
It's always harder than it seems. Some people take for granted that they will be able to raise. Now they have a runway for 6 months where they say, no, we will raise. The odds are against us, right? So many companies, so many opportunities, the funds have to choose. Sometimes we're not able to do a great pitch at that day. Maybe you lost it. I mean, don't take it for granted. That's one. Two, try to be less dependent of capital. Then probably you're the best target for capital, right? That's another thing. Some business model like digital bank is very hard to start without capital, right? You have all the infrastructure. But if you're able to find the perfect niche to start that requires less capital, you'll be more attractive for new capital coming in. Third, I personally never had experience of pitching a fund for the first time and a month later decided to write a check. It was always building the relationship for years. As I mentioned, BBVA, I met them more than 3 years before they invested the first time. I remember the first meeting I had with General Atlantic, I was asking for $300,000. And I said, do you know where you are? Right? I mean, here's 30 million to start. I said, okay, through life, so I'll come back here ask for some money. But then I was always proving execution, right? So I'm going to deliver this with this amount of money. And then after a year, you get there and say, hey, no, I over-delivered what I promised you. And then create this relationship with the funds. In the long term, I think is the best way of raising capital. So it will happen.
And now you have at times found yourself on the other side. I know that you love to mentor entrepreneurs and also you're an angel investor. Sounds like you enjoy also that part a little bit.
I'm not a mentor at all. I mean, I don't feel prepared to be a mentor. I try to help somehow. And sometimes it's by becoming an angel investor, sometimes it's introducing someone. To be honest, I sometimes feel selfish during helping those other companies because usually I learn more with them than they learn with me. It's important that we don't lose the grip of how to start a business. That's one thing. When I have 2,000 employees, it's very easy to feel comfortable with 6-month deadline for everything, right? And when we talk with a startup that's starting right now and say, hey, we launched this in 6 days. I say, oh, fuck, I need to change. Otherwise, I'm going to die. So I do try to help, but I ended up learning more than helping. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm with you now. We have a great pipeline of companies, so I'm always updating what's going on out there. So yeah, I try to be always connected.
Well, Pedro, I know that we are, first of all, we're super excited to have you as a supporter in many capacities, and your introductions have been some of the best. You clearly surround yourself with hungry, humble, smart people, and we're just extremely happy to have you in the team, and also thank you for joining us for this amazing discussion, and thanks for everything you've done.
And congrats for what you're doing, and thanks for the invitation. And I mean, you're not Brazilian, but you're becoming one. You know more people here than some funds that are here for years. So congrats for your local presence. Footprint is like, you're doing great. Congrats.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this great live episode with Pedro Conrade, CEO of Neon. If you want more interviews, make sure to subscribe, follow, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. It helps and means a lot. And if you have any suggestions or thoughts about the show, just drop me a line on Twitter or LinkedIn. Signing off, till next week, I'm your host, Miguel Armaza.